wants federal agencies to disclose the number of terrorist encounters at our border. That seems like pretty reasonable, I think, doesn't it? Senator Marshall joins us now. Senator, thank you. Who in the world could object to knowing whether terrorists are trying to cross our borders? I mean, what is the argument against that?
Well, Trey, we have an incompetent Secretary of DHS, and of course, Joe Biden wants this open border. But it's a sad day when our enemies pay more attention to our border than our own president does. You know, to your point, we've encountered over 170 terrorists on the terrorist watch list in the past year. In the past 2 years, thousands of people on the alien watch list as well. 2,000 Chinese nationalists on this watch list as well across the border as well. All we're asking DHS to do is tell us where these people are, who they are, what they're doing. Are they still in the country? Were they caught and released? We don't want to be asleep at the wheel like Israel was when Hamas attacked Israel.
You know, Senator, you're a doctor. I couldn't make it through math and science, so I went to law school. I try to understand the other argument. I try to understand those like Ali Mayorkas who say, oh, we're not going to give you the names. And I can't think of why. I mean, has he ever said, look, Senator, we're not going to tell you about these encounters for the following reasons? I mean, what is the explanation?
Well, Trey, there is not an explanation, and that's why we asked for a resolution of no confidence back in April for Secretary Mayorkas, hoping that the House would go through some type of process to impeach him. But again, the big theme here is that Joe Biden wants these 8,000 people crossing the border illegally. He thinks that those are future votes for the Democrat Party. He wants this crisis, and it's hard for me to understand why in the middle of the situation, the crisis in Israel, that he would try to leverage that for money in Ukraine, as well as making the border even more porous. He has funding there that will make the asylum process more efficient, so to speak. So there's no explanation, Trey. We're not going to be able to do it.
Senator, before I let you go, there's a debate going on right now in D.C. and across the country, quite candidly, about military aid, Ukraine, Israel. Do we combine the packages, separate them out? What do you think's going to happen? And how will you be analyzing the two separate aid packages?
Well, Trey, we've already asked leadership to separate them. And I think the way I would frame the argument is something like this, that in the next 7 to 10 days, Israel could well have a war on all three fronts. And that's why we need to get them the aid, the weapons yesterday. And if any type of bringing these packages together is going to slow down the process, if not be next to impossible, we think it's very wrong for the administration, for Joe Biden to leverage the crisis in Israel in order to get his funding for Ukraine. I think that your listeners understand the difference between what's happening in Ukraine versus what's happening in Israel. That in Ukraine, this is a 7, 9, 10-year war. They're at a stalemate. 200,000 people have already died from that situation. There's no end in sight. And we need to debate what's the future of the United States' role in that particular war. Meanwhile, the crisis that is occurring in Israel, that this is a war between the people of Israel as well as the Hamas army of terror. And this isn't just a battle between those two, but this is a battle for the future of humankind, that we need to teach terrorists exactly what happens when they cross these savage lines. As you described them, they're lower than animals. There's no explanation. So we need to make sure that terrorists understand that we will not tolerate this type of actions.
Senator Roger Marshall from the great state of Kansas. Congratulations, by the way, on beating Oklahoma over the weekend, and thank you for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thanks, Trace. Thanks so much.